Good morning, vinyl community. I hope everyone is doing well. It's been a while. It's been a while, relatively speaking, to how often I post videos. But as everyone knows, um, there's been some stuff going on in the world. Maybe it's just a local thing. I don't know, but I'm going to guess it's made the news in your parts. Of course, we're talking about the suspension of hockey, NHL hockey. Hockey's on hold right now. So that's been kind of like the main focus of news stories in my parts. Anyways, what we're doing here today, in case you're illiterate, and in 2020, you really have no excuse to be illiterate. We're doing the Vinyl Tag Quarantine Edition. I guess someone has decided to restart the Vinyl Tag as something somebody can do or people can do while they're quarantined. I am very, very fortunate in the sense that I am not quarantined. I have a job to go to every day, and my heart does go out to those. It sounds cliche to say, kind of like thoughts and prayers. But I really do feel badly for those people who are adversely affected by losing their jobs or income, and they're having trying times at the moment. Like I said, I'm just very fortunate to have a job that was deemed essential. Unlike these videos, these would not be deemed essential. I guess depends on who you ask, but I'm the creator, and I'm telling you they're not essential. But anyways, yeah, thankfully I have a job that I go to every day, and I've not been really adversely affected in any real meaningful way. I guess is what I'm saying. I don't count record stores and thrift stores not being open as any consolation for what what people are going through, anyways. So, anyways, what we're doing today, like I said, is the quarantine edition of Vinyl Tag 2020, and I want to say cheers to everyone out there. Yeah, there's going to be some questions here that I'm not going to answer. A couple questions, I think, because I think one of them appears on pretty much everyone. I could be wrong, but it feels like I've answered it many times. And then there might be one question where I just couldn't think of anything. But, it's not to say I didn't put effort into this. I did. But, some questions become repetitive after a while. But anyways, I'm happy to be here and doing the vinyl tag for you. Let's get this started here. Once again, if you're illiterate, it's the Vinyl Tag Quarantine Edition. Favorite record from your home state or city? Well, first of all, I'm not American. That was a really bad American accent. We have provinces in Canada, but we do have cities though. So I'm going to choose something here that is from my home city. Give me 1 second here. Cheers, everyone. It is very early, and I will need coffee today. We're going to talk about a band that 99.999% of you don't know about, but you should. It's a band called The Smalls. The Smalls were, I think, originally from Taber, Alberta, small town in Alberta somewhere, I think down south. And they all, and I got to know them. Some better than others, but they had a record deal in Canada, and they were relatively well known. I guess somewhat, anyways. But I digress. They were an odd hybrid of metal and punk with some country roots influence thrown in. And it's an odd mixture, but it all works. And they, to this day, remain one of the most original bands to come out of Canada, in my opinion. The bass player, Corb Lund, has gone on to be a very successful solo country singer. And a few years back, they reformed to do a short tour, and which was absolutely phenomenal. And I wish they would do it again, because they were. I think their music was so non-genre specific that it was really hard to pigeonhole them. Although one of the band members have told me, I think they made 4 albums, 4 albums. And were they to make a 5th album, that I believe Chad Kroeger from Nickelback had expressed interest in producing that album, which I don't think they were going to take him up on. That's just the rumor I heard anyways at the time. Anyways, the Smalls. Truly, truly one of the greatest exports that really no one's ever heard about from my city of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. All right, we're going to go to an album you highly recommend. And an album that I highly recommend is something that I pulled from my collection the other day to play, which you may have seen on Instagram. And once again, if you're not following me on Instagram, man, you're losing out. There's so much fun stuff on my Instagram. NAZZ_NOMAD for all the fun of me posting what I'm listening to. And the odd selfie. Anyways, 1970, oh man, I want to say 71, might be 71, 72, is a band called Bang. And I think I've talked about this album before when I picked this one up. But they were, man, I'm going to brain fart. I think they were from Maryland, I could be wrong, or Milwaukee, Wisconsin. They were one of a handful of bands that now we call proto, meaning they were kind of pre of a genre we got to know, I guess, pre-doom metal. Just a fantastic record that if you have it, then you know, and if you don't, you need to know. They're not doom metal like Sleep. There's a modern reference for you. They were, at one point, they were kind of considered America's Black Sabbath, that kind of doom metal, but they were kind of, they kind of predated it. But if you want to listen to a fantastic album right now, and you would not believe this is from the early 70s, Bang. Their first album, simply called Bang. Fantastic. I cannot recommend this album enough. Number 3 is something that I'm not going to show, so I'm going to grab a wonderful cup of coffee so I'm not fiddling with my hands here. Still touching the face. Anyways, tip for a beginner. There's so many. Collect what you like, not what you think you need to collect. And I think I've touched on this before, but you start, it's an online internet kind of world, but you join these vinyl forums or these vinyl communities or whatever on Instagram or Facebook, and there's a lot of people posting a lot of really weird, obscure stuff that 3 other people know, but they're very vocal in telling you how influential and great they are, and it might be great, but and you think, well, I don't have that album, I need to find it, and whether it's your cup of tea or not, you spend a lot of money on a lot of records that you think you need to have, but really isn't really, like I said, isn't really your cup of tea. Collect what you like, no matter how it plays on the internet. If you like 80s synth pop, which isn't the most cool thing to post on a vinyl community page, that's what you like, and that's what you should collect, because you don't collect for value. You should not collect for value. Sorry, you shouldn't. You shouldn't collect what you think, or to keep up with the neighbors, or as we used to call it, keeping up with the Joneses. It doesn't matter what you like. If you like it, you like it, and that's what you like. And that's 3 likes in 1 sentence. Top that one. Collect what you like. It's not a popularity contest, and you shouldn't be buying records just to post them on a vinyl community to get thumbs up and likes and have people comment. If your favorite band is Wham or George Michael, then that's what you collect. That's what you like. That's what you listen to. It doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what that dude on YouTube who has 2 million subscribers thinks. Who gives a shit? You're the one that has to have your collection, and you're the one that has to look through it and love what you're seeing. Because really, in the end of the day, you're not impressing anyone. After you post that photo on social media, and you get your likes, and you get, you know, after the applause is gone, that album's going to sit in your collection because it's not really your thing. And like I said, it's not like you're going to have like a crowd of people over to your house and you're going to impress them with that really obscure psych album or prog album. So that's all. You know, that's my tip. Is it's not a popularity contest. You like what you like, and that's what you should be buying. Cheers, everyone. I could go on and on this one. First record that really got you deeper into music. Uh, this is by no means my first record. This comes many years on. This comes from about 1989, 88, 89, and it's an album that was so kind of like the Smalls. It was so genre. You couldn't fit it in any box, and it kind of led me this way. It led me this way. It led me this way, and I discovered more bands off of this album. And once again, a band that not very many people on these shores, being the North American shores, share any love for. There's the odd person here and there. There's a band called Pop Will Eat Itself, and this is the album called This Is the Day, This Is the Hour, This and This. This is this. Produced by Flood. Flood, who has produced Depeche Mode and has produced Nitzareb and other kind of more industrialish bands and kind of underground electro bands. But Pop Will Eat Itself, there was a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and it kind of led me. Since the question is what got you into deeper music meaning, I guess, led you down other roads and you discovered stuff you haven't been exposed to before. This led me to things like to dig deeper, because they kind of rapped over industrialish dance beats, kind of, and that's a very elementary way of explaining their music, but it led me into like some rap music. It led me into industrial music. It led me into club music. It led me into different kinds of very heavy guitar-based music. So it's like I said, it's a very tough album to put into a box and call it a certain thing. But it's the album that I think uses the most inventive use of sampling that I've ever heard in my life. And yeah, like I said, another thing, it led me into, sample-heavy music, bands that were using samples in very creative ways. But Pop Will Eat Itself, This Is the Day, This Is the Hour, This Is This, an album that I talked way too much about because not a lot of you probably care. But there it is. Like I said, it doesn't have to be popular for you to like it and show it and talk about it. An obscure record people may not know about. That one is kind of very subjective, and it's kind of, you could kind of look at that question a number of different ways. I pulled a couple records by artists that were well known, that may have slid under the radar slightly. This is a band called Max Q. Max Q is the side project of Michael Hutchence from INXS, and INXS. This was made at the height of INXS. He went off and did this solo album. Well, so it's another band, I guess, because there are other band members involved. And I, to this day, will say this is on par or better than most INXS albums. I think it's that good of an album. And they only made it one album. And I've heard differing stories about how the rest of INXS felt about him doing this album, that he didn't quite tell him he was doing it, and he did this album. And, the album had a modicum of success, but sometimes Way of the World, Ghost of the Year, everything. I mean, the whole first side, there's not one wasted note, and there's not one wasted moment that isn't pleasurable to my ears. I just think it's a fantastic album. You can kind of make out on this hodgepodge of photos, there's Michael Hutchence in there somewhere. But anyways, fantastic album. And if you're a fan of INXS, but you don't know, or you haven't gone too deep down that road, or you've not heard this album, Max Q, the one and only album by Max Q. So it's not hard to find it. It's not a hard album to find at all. But anyways, I highly recommend that album. And this next album is by an artist we all know, but it's one that kind of flew under the radar slightly. Once again, it's one of those albums, if you have it, you know. although it features a very 80s production style, which you have to kind of uh, suspend your disbelief a bit and kind of look past that. But it's an album by Brian Setzer of the Stray Cats. Of course, he went on to do his big band thing, which I wasn't a big fan of. But this is an album called Live Nude Guitars. And how I found out about this album was back in the day, I'm going to date myself, there used to be these things called delete bins. And, department stores or wherever, record stores, and they would have cutouts. And you can get cassettes for like 99 cents, $1.99. And you could, it was a good opportunity for, if you were a kid, it was not a lot of money to investigate albums. And that's how I found about things like, I found out about Julian Cope. I found out about so many, I just recall so many albums picking up out of those delete bins, and it wasn't because of a lack of quality, just for whatever reason the album didn't sell. And I picked this cassette up of Live Nude Guitars, and it is a fantastic, it is basically Stray Cats if they were combined with some kind of glossy 80s band, I guess. It does have I think Dave Stewart from the Eurythmics co-produces some of these songs. So it does have that kind of gleam or shine on it. And I think there's some programmed drums on it that you'd have to hear the album many, many times to kind of figure out, those are programmed drums or programmed horns that were maybe played on keyboards. But the songs are still there, and I think it's just a fantastic album, very much of its time. But I loved this album at the time. I still love it to this day. Brian Setzer, Live Nude Guitars. I have a list right here, so if I'm looking down, I'm reading, struggling to read at that. What are we at now? A group who you collect all of their albums or try to collect all of their albums. Well, I didn't pull any records for this one because if you're a viewer of my channel, then you kind of know. There's a lot of bands that I collect, Hawkwind, Depeche Mode, Golden Earring. There's so many, T-Rex, there's Bowie. There's so many bands that I collect. That's why I tend to have a larger record collection than some people, because I tend to collect every record by a lot of different bands. So I named a few there. It's one of those questions that it's really hard to talk about, because there's not one band I can say I collect all their albums, because there's a lot of bands I collect all of their albums. I'm going to try to speed this along. A band whose second album is better than their first. And I haven't seen all the vinyl videos in this series, the Quarantine Vinyl Tag Edition 2020. I have not seen them all, so I'm not sure if anyone else has mentioned this, but my mind went to one place and one place only, and that's Cream. Disraeli Gears, this is their second album, of course, their first album being Fresh Cream, which I thought was, it's okay album. Fresh Cream, the first album. Second album, what they turn out is an all-time classic, Disraeli Gears. There's nothing else I can really say about this album that you don't know already, but if you don't own it, then man, you're missing out. Eric Clapton, Ginger Baker, Jack Bruce. Only one of them are alive, and you could probably guess which one. Anyways, Cream, Disraeli Gears. If you were to compile a list of best second albums of all time, this would have to be on there. Next question. Show and Tell, a Whack-A-Mole album. This is one of those questions that I think I've seen appear on other lists, and I think it's kind of one of those really weird questions. It's show and tell, a random pick. I did grab one, but it's not like I have a crazy story to tell about this one. This is Iggy Pop's Instinct from 1988. I'm going to guess 88. Although I had jobs before 1988, I was young in 1988. I had worked for our AAA farm team, the California Angels farm team that was based in my city. They were also Oakland A's AAA farm team for a while. I had worked for them for a while. I had worked at a convenience store. Well, maybe that was after this. Yeah, maybe that was after. It's been a long time ago. Oh, so many years ago. Anyways, my first real job was at a van customizing shop back when, you know, customizable vans were still a thing, at least in my area. You know, you'd buy a van, they'd gut it out, they'd put in captain chairs, a bitchin' stereo, a bed, or, you know, that kind of van conversion place, and I got a job. Um, I used to cut running boards, and I would install carpet, just general um, bullshit jobs. But that was my first kind of, I would say, real job, um, in the sense that I kind of made real money. I was still in high school, I believe, at the time. Anyways, with my first paycheck, I got paid, and I went right after work. I went to the record store I would normally go to during a weekday, which was very unusual. Um, and I remember buying this album with my very first paycheck from my real job, and that's all. And it's not even that great of an album. Although Steve Jones plays guitars from the Sex Pistols, he plays guitar on this album. Cold Metal's good. There's a couple other good songs on this album, but I primarily bought it for Cold Metal and the fact that I knew Steve Jones played on this album, and I was a big Sex Pistols fan. But there you go. That's your whack-a-mole. What album have you listened to most in your life? And I had to strain to think about this one. I had to go back to an album. Obviously, I would have had to have this album very young in life, and an album that I still listen to today because it's just the length of time. And I'm going to go with this one. This is ABC's A Lexicon of Love. This is a rare, fully autographed version with the full band. Anyways, I had this album in 1982. I was very young, and I think I got it from the Columbia Record Club, Record and Tape Club. You know, that club that you would order records from but never pay for. I did that a lot. But at the time, this was, I think, the first thing I ordered off the Columbia Record and Tape Club. And that shows you how loose the rules were with that club when someone who was, you know, less than 10 could sign up for that thing. But excuse me, I had this on cassette, and back at, you know, it's not like now where I have thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of options of what to listen to. This was maybe one of 2 cassettes I owned, or albums in total that I owned. It was less than 5 for sure. So if you kind of do the math, I've probably listened to this album more than anything. And to this day, I think this is the greatest pop album of the 80s. And it's in there with the best pure pop albums of all time. Produced by Trevor Horn. ABC's The Lexicon of Love. Next question. Show an album with a crazy story. Well, I'm full of crazy stories, but I just picked this one because this one came to random memory. Back in the late 90s, I was the manager of one of Canada's biggest record stores in my city, which was located in West Edmonton Mall. And we used to have at that place location now, there's still this area there, but there's a stage outside the main entrance. It was HMV at the time, but now it's a place called Sunrise Records. But they don't utilize the stage like we used to. We used to bring in artists who were doing promo trips, and they would do songs, and the radio station would come. One of the radio stations would come broadcast it and do interviews and blah blah blah. And we had some big artists on that stage. And then one day, I believe it was EMI Records said, we have Melanie C, or Spotty Spice, who was promoting her first solo album. We have her coming through on a press junket. Would you like to have her on your stage to do a few songs? And I was like, yeah, of course. The Spice Girls were one of those, you know, I was a closeted kind of Spice Girl lover. More of the girls. But anyways, she was going to come and do an in-store. No autographs, I don't believe. It was just an on-stage performance, and radio stations would do interviews and your usual press junket, except for she'd be doing it at my store. And underneath the stage area, which if you're at West Edmonton Mall to this day, you look at that stage, there's actually dressing rooms underneath there. And I was asked to be her minder for the day, local minder. She had a girl with her who was her I guess her friend. I guess it was a friend of hers, but she was also her assistant. But and I was assigned to be her local, whatever, runner, call it what you want, but I got to spend the day with her. And almost all of it was in private in this dressing room. And I would do anything from go grab her green tea to listen to her swear like a sailor, just to do vocal exercises, to do all kinds of weird stuff. And um, I grabbed a copy of this leading up to her coming, and she autographed my copy of Wannabe 12-inch single. There's the autograph right there. I do have a photo with her too, but I don't know where it's somewhere. But anyways, I don't know if that's a crazy story, but that's I got to hang out with her for a full day, and yeah, that's all I'm gonna say about that. She was very, very, very beautiful. That's all I'm gonna say about that. All right. Oh my God, your collecting pet peeve. I could go on rants and rants and rants. This kind of ties in with question 3, a tip for a beginner. Collecting pet peeve. I'm not sure if it's. I mean, it's kind of a very broad, general question, but I don't have any pet peeves about my collecting. Although I collect too much is I guess a general pet peeve. But if I didn't, I wouldn't be able to do these lovely videos for you. But a pet peeve of mine, and you can call this shallow or it's none of my business or whatever you want. But, and like I said, it ties into question 3, what I was talking about. There is a pet peeve of mine is people who collect based on what's cool or what's valuable or you know, it's intentionally obscure, and there's people I know who that's all they collect is just very weird, obscure albums that are probably obscure for a reason, and I don't know why it rubs me the wrong way because I don't know if they're collecting for the right reasons, but. And then, like I said, it's none of my business why they're spending. They can spend their money any way they want. But since the question is right fucking there, I want to answer it. It is a bit of a pet peeve. It's I have a hard time believing that there's that many people who are into these super super obscure albums, and you know, and it's I don't know. I just don't get a sense that that is what they truly love. I think it's wanting to be known as that guy who's into really obscure records, I guess, and they're more. I guess it's trying to muddy your waters to make them appear deeper. Is you want to appear more knowledgeable than the next guy. Oh, I know the super obscure band that you don't know, so I'm in the know. So I mean, I don't know if that's a pet peeve of not or a valid one, but the question's there. But there's no right or wrong answer to it, I guess. An album or genre you would be surprised to know I like. Um, Genre, I like everything, short of classical. To be honest, and that's just a rabbit hole I haven't gone down, and I don't think I'll ever go down the classical rabbit hole. And I don't like modern pop music. Just it really it's not my age. I try listening to it. Most of it does sound the same. It's just the same cookie cutter template they're using. But an artist or an album or a genre, I chose the album, not the genre, is that I really like the Dixie Chicks. And it comes off of the base of that documentary that they did called Shut Up and Sing. And I came out of that watching that documentary after several views of that documentary, really, really respecting them. And very strong women, and I have a real love for strong women, and that's what they were, and that's what that whole documentary just showed how strong you can be, or how strong, or I guess, or how much strength you can muster in the face of adversity, which is when they were, if you haven't seen it ostensibly, they said they were embarrassed that the president at the time. Was it George Bush, I believe, at the time, was from their home state. It might have been George Bush Jr. I can't remember now. But anyways, I'm Canadian, you know, by the way. Anyways, and the backlash they faced was like kind of like nothing else. It was kind of akin to the Beatles, people burning their albums because John Lennon said they were more popular than Jesus. Um, but that's what kind of maybe made me think they were a bit more than what I thought they were. They weren't just some cobbled together group of good-looking girls singing country music. That they appreciated tradition and they did make genuinely great music. And this album, I think, is my favorite. Is an album called "Taking the Long Way," and it has the song "Not Ready to Make Nice." Because I think this is the album that came out after that controversy, and the song is about that controversy. But I just think they're great, and they have a new album coming out called "Gaslighter." I should probably pick that up soon. Anyways, Dixie Chicks, you may be surprised to know I do like this album, and I do like them generally speaking. I think they're, like I said, very. Um, I think their strength is what's sexy about them, not particularly their looks. Really, is just their. I find strong women hot. Go figure. Next question is a record from when the year you were born. I'm gonna pick T-Rex, the Electric Warrior. Done. Show a 10-inch record and share your opinion on 10-inch records. Well, this is a 10-inch box set. This is the original pressing of this on Creation Records. This is the Oasis, the master plan. And they pressed this on, I can't remember if it's 8 or 10 10-inch singles, which I'm pretty proud to own, being a big Oasis fan. So I'm showing that one. As you can see, it's a box set. And like I said, there's a lot of 10 singles in there. I don't like the format. I don't know why. It seems like an unnecessary format. You have your 7-inch, you know, and which serves a purpose, and you got the 12-inch, and that the whole 10-inch. I never got it, and I never collected them. And if I was faced with buying a 10-inch or a 7-inch or a 12-inch, I went for anything other than the 10-inch. And they don't sit in your collection proper. They kind of get hidden. It's just like it's an odd amount of music. I don't like the format. Never have, never will. Share an interesting fact about an album or a song, and this is one of those ones I'm going to skip. I just brain farting / I think I've come across this question before. Show an album with an animal on the cover, and I chose this one. Peter Green from Fleetwood Mac, the early Fleetwood Mac. The End of the Game. This is an original Reprise Records pressing, just because. And as you can see, there's a lovely leopard or coyote or dog of some kind on the cover. Possibly a dingo or a Labrador retriever. And I guess the interesting thing about this album, and I guess this could be an interesting fact as well, is I guess he left. This could answer the question before, I don't know. He left Fleetwood Mac to because he wanted to make different music for different reasons, and then he turns out this album could have been a Fleetwood Mac album of the music they were making at the time. So that's neither interesting or whatever, but you chose, the question said to choose an album with an animal on the cover. I'm choosing this odd-looking dog on the cover of this one. Peter Green's The End of the Game. Show an album with crazy artwork. I chose Pantera's Vulgar Display of Power. Why? Well, that's kind of a weird cover. And I thought this was kind of like, at the time, I thought this was kind of a staged photo where the guy's fist, you know, is like that. And, okay, take the photo. But apparently, from what I saw in an interview with the late Vinnie Paul, drummer of Pantera, and they actually paid this guy something like $100, whatever it was, to get punched in the face for this photo. And I believe they took 10 takes. The guy took 10 punches to the head, apparently. to get this cover. Good on you, man. You're immortalized for life for being a big douche. Plus, you made that $100 to get punched in the head 10 times. Good for you. Anyways, there you go. That answers that one. Show a really good album you can find for cheap. Well, I could have picked a lot of things. I have a lot of thrift store finds, and I always tell you guys this is one of the best albums you can find for $1.99 or whatever. But I've been listening to this album a lot lately, and I guess value is relative to where you live in the world, because I find a $5 record here is 15 in Berlin, it's 10 pounds in England, and in Australia it's $20, and it's all relative to where you live and how popular that album was in your area. But this is a perennial $5 record where I'm from. It's the first Crowded House album, and it sold so many copies, which is why it's probably $5 in my area. Plus, Neil Finn's earlier band, Split Enz, were incredibly popular in Canada, and especially Western Canada, where I'm from. So this album sold bucket and bucket loads, probably per capita a lot more than a lot of other places in the world. But and they were the darlings of our video channel called Much Music. They were always on there. Their videos are appearing with them. But it's a $5 record, but a flawless album that you can get for $5. Neil Finn is Neil Finn. Where's Neil? Right there. Is my personal, probably favorite songwriter of all time, and this is the first album he made after leaving Split Enz, and he just, how he culled everything together to make this perfect album, in my opinion, is beyond me. But you can get this record, like I said, $5 in my area. Show an album with an acquired taste. I think I pulled 2 records for that. I did. Klaus Nomi, the German-born singer who went to New York to find fame and fortune, and it took him a long time to do it. This is his debut. He made 2 solo albums during his lifetime. Solo albums. He made 2 albums, and then subsequently there's some albums that came out after he died. He was one of the first notable people in the music business to who died of AIDS early on. And there you go. There's a great documentary called The Nomi Song, which I have on DVD, but you can find it on streaming services. I highly recommend that documentary. It's an incredible documentary, and it left me with a lot more appreciation for Klaus Nomi than I had before. It takes a lot to get used to his voice, because he has an insane range. He has a classical voice, but he puts it into this weird pop world of New York City, late 70s. And it's a great documentary. And so I chose Klaus Nomi. It is a lot to get used to, but once you do, there's some pleasure to be had there. And then, of course, I chose Ornette Coleman's The Shape of Jazz to Come, because free jazz, it took me a while to get into it. And then I discovered The Shape of Jazz to Come. And if you can wrap your head around this album, it'll help you wrap your head around a lot of jazz music, and especially free jazz, like later Coltrane. A lot of people say, like, "Oh, I love Coltrane," but that later era, because he went really kind of off, John Coltrane, that is, went really off the wall later on in life, as he was chasing something. He was chasing a sound, and Ornette Coleman was definitely doing that as well. He was chasing a sound. And this video's been dragging on. Holy shit. Well, I'm making up for not making a video of late. So anyways, and you know what? Question 20 is show your most recent find. I can't do that because I got a vinyl finds video coming up after this. So you wait for that. So I pussed out on a couple questions, but I hope you forgive me. I made up for it with meandering and talking, and generally being very entertaining as always. Thank you for if you sat through this, or if you've skipped through my banter just to get to the next question. Thank you for clicking on this video. Thank you as always to everyone who watches. my videos. Like I said, there's going to be a vinyl finds video coming up right away. I'm going to try to film that tomorrow and have it up next week for you. So like I said, this is the quarantine edition of the Vinyl Tag 2020, and let's hope this COVID thing goes away soon so everyone can get back to work and everyone can get back to normal. And as like I said, it's just heartbreaking coming out of this. What's going to happen with a lot of local businesses, and a lot of people's jobs may not be there at the end of the day, which I think is really sad. So, anyways, how about I end this on a bum note like that? But anyways, I'm gonna reach for my remote here, and I'm gonna say goodbye to everyone. I hope everyone has a great rest of the week, for what's left of it, and I hope everyone stays safe. Take care, everyone.